So lesson 1, we begin with the pronunciation of Chinese language. Now we know it's like there are two writing systems of the Chinese language. So the basically one, like we use Chinese characters. And when we come to learn its pronunciation, so we have a different writing system. It's called Pinyin. So Pinyin showed the pronunciation of Chinese characters. So it's kind of like Chinese characters phonetic transcriptions. So that's the beginning point of the pronunciation of Chinese language. So that's very basic knowledge. And we know like these are the Chinese characters, means 你好. Very basic greeting items in daily life. It means hi, hello. And we know if we want to learn the pronunciation of these characters, so we have these pinyin. So these like written in letters, alphabets. And these are the syllables are called pinyin. So if we focus on pinyin, we know it can be divided into three parts, three smaller parts. And each part is 声母, so second part, 韵母, and 声调, so 声母, initials, 韵母, finals, and 声调, tones. So they combine together and makes a combination, and we call this combination a pinyin syllable. And that's a very basic unit of Chinese pronunciation. And in language practice, so each pinyin syllable like stand for a character. So basically we have this kind of equation. Each pinyin syllable stand for a Chinese character. Okay, so this is the pinyin syllable. And then we learn the tones. And tones is a kind of feature of Chinese language. And we know there are 4 tones in total in Chinese language. It's called 一声, the first tone, 二声, the second tone, 三声, the third tone, and 四声, the fourth tone. Okay, so these are the 4 tones in total in Chinese language. And we know tones are very important because tones can distinguish meanings, right? So we give an example like ma, 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 ma. And if they read on the different tones, they have different meanings. So tones have distinguishing value, and this is very important. That's why makes why make Chinese tones are so important. So don't forget that. When we learn a new final, so all the time we read under the 4 tones to practice each tone. Okay, so initials, lesson 1. Let's like make a quick review. Okay, so again, please read after me. 波, 坡, 摸, 佛, 的, 特, 呢, 了, 个, 科, 呵. Okay, and comes the finals of lesson 1. Okay. 啊, 喔, 一, 乌, 吁, I, A, 凹, O, an, en, in, ang, in, on. Okay, for the last one, we don't read under the first tone. Remember that? So we read as er, ar. So the last one, ar, which means two. So this pronunciation is quite special because we open our mouth a little bit wider than it's right under the second tone and third tone. Okay, so read again. Er, ar. Okay, so these are finals of lesson 1. And then we introduce 1 spelling rules when we learn the text of lesson 1, right? We learn a person's name, like the teacher's name, remember? His name is Li Yimin, right? Li Yimin. And we know there's a kind of special writing rules. So this is a very normal ones. Like initials, we choose N, finals, E, and then we spell together. It's written in this way, right? So this is a pinyin syllable and it begins with the initial N and ends with the final E. And usually, of course, we should write a tone mark. So here we just want to show show it in a simple way, so we don't write tones here. And then comes the person's name. The teacher's name is Li Yimin, right? So Yi, and we see this pinyin syllable is a rather special one. And now we know its spelling rules is like this. In this pinyin syllable, there's no initials. Okay, so we use this mark to show non-initial, which there's no initial. In this pinyin syllable, there's only a final E. So spell in this way, non-initial plus final E. When we write it, so according to the spelling rules, we add a letter Y. Okay, so in writing system, we add a letter I. So it's written in this way, a letter I and plus the final E. So it's really like E. But when we see this, we know this letter Y is voiceless. It's not a real initial. So it's like it's soundless. Okay, so it doesn't stand for any initial. It's just a final I, a final E, letter I, so stand for final E. So when we read it, it's like an E that's only written this way. Okay, so let us to introduce two other writing rules. So remember, we learned the final in lesson 1. The first line is and I, U, U. So from I, U, and U, they all have special spelling rules. So if there's a non-initial plus U, okay, so if it is non-initial plus U, when we write, we add a letter W, and it's written this way, W and U. But when we see this pinyin syllable, we know this W stands for nothing. It's not a real initial. So in this pinyin syllable, there's only one final U. So how to read it? Right, it's U. Okay, it's U. Because this W is just like a writing symbol. It's just a mark, which stand for not any initials. It's speechless. Okay, it's soundless. So it doesn't stand for any initials. It's just a mark. Okay, let's come to the U. So if there's a non-initial plus a final U, so this is kind of more complicated. So when we write it according to the spelling rules, we add a letter Y first. Okay, so we add a letter Y first, and then we change this U to U. Okay, so we remove the two dots above U. Okay, so there's two small dots above this letter U. So we remove these two dots and change it into U. So it's written this way. When you see it, there's a letter Y, and this Y stands for nothing. It's like voiceless. It's not a real initial. And this letter U, attention please, this letter U is not U, it's U. It's kind of confusing, right? But according to spelling rules, it's just written in this way. So please pay a special attention to this one. When you see a Y and the U, you know, oh, this Y is just a writing mark. It's not a real initial. That's correct. But when you see this Y plus U, please pay special attention. This U stands for U, actually. It's not U. So don't mix this U to this U. Okay, so how to read it again? This pinyin syllable read as E, and this one U, and this one U. Okay, so when it's a real U, okay, so when it's a real U, we add a letter W. When it's a U, we add a letter Y. Okay, so don't make a mistake. It can be a little bit confusing to this. So again, let me repeat. So non-initial plus U, when we write it according to the spelling rules. So first, we add a letter Y. We add a letter Y, and then we remove the two small dots above U and change the letter into like a U, it looks like a U. So when we write it, we write a Y plus a letter U. So which makes this U looks like a U, but actually this is a U. Okay, let's read again. E, U, yu. Okay, so this is a spelling rules, special spelling rules. Okay, so now let's come to the lesson 2. So first, let me introduce the initials of lesson 2. Okay, so we are going to learn like 7 new initials from lesson 2. Okay, so please read after me. The first one, zhi, chi, shi, ri. Read again. So, zhi, chi, shi, ri. And this one, zi, ci, ci. Again, please. Zi, ci, ci. Okay, so you can see there's a typo. Okay, so I removed the letter I. There's no letter I. But actually, when we practice these initials, we already write a vowel into it. Okay, so that's why it makes it sound. It can be sounded. Okay. Again, let's read again. Initials from lesson 2. Zhi, chi, shi, ri, zi, ci, ci. Okay, so let me explain a little bit about these initials. Okay, so all the 2 group of initials, we use the tip of our tongue, and we use the tip of our tongue to against some part of the mouth, okay, of our speech organs. And then first we make it a block first. So we block the air from the mouth coming out, and then suddenly we release. Okay, so for this group, for the group 1, zhi, chi, shi, and ri, so we use the tip of the tongue to block the backer part of our mouth. Okay, so we use the tongue to against the upper part of the mouth. It's rather low, but it's back part of our mouth. So you can feel it, the tip of the tongue against the upper and the back part of the mouth. Okay, so let me repeat again. So we use the tip of the tongue to against the backer and the upper part of the mouth, and we make it a block, and then suddenly we release. So it's really like zhi, chi, shi, and ri. And for this pair, shi and ri, the only difference between shi and ri is shi is voiceless and ri is voiced. Okay, so shi is voiceless and ri is voiced. For this one, zi, ci, si, so we use the tip of the tongue and to make it against the upper front part of the mouth. Okay, so let me repeat again. For zi, ci, si, we use the tip of the tongue to make it against the upper front part of the mouth. Okay, so read again. Zi, ci, si. Okay, so let us to make comparison between the 2 groups. So first we pronounce like a zi, so you can feel the tip of the tongue is in the front part. Okay, the front part of the mouth. Zi. Okay, for this one, zhi, the tip of the tongue move to the back part of the mouth. Okay, so feel the move of the tongue. Zi, zhi, ci, shi, si, shi, and okay, voiced. Ri. Okay, so these are the initials of lesson 2. Okay, comes to the finals. Okay, so the finals from lesson 2 is all begin with the final u. You can see, right? It all begins with the letter u, so which means u. And just as I said in lesson 1, so there's no real double vowels in Chinese language. Okay, so it's not like English, like pronunciation. We have like a O and I. It sounds like longer than single vowel, right? But in Chinese, there's no real double vowels. It's all like single vowel. It's kind of like a small combination. It's a spelling. So we read as it's already spelled u and r together and make it as a whole. So this one is like wa. Okay, let's read again. Wa, and this one wo, y, we, right? Read again. U and r and they spell together. Read as a whole. So wa, u and wo, wo, u and I, and read again together. Y and u and a, please read together. Spell it together and read as a whole. We. And this one you can see. So actually it's u and a they spell together. But when we write it, so this this letter e is omitted. Okay. So this letter e is omitted. So it's only written in like u and I. We. Okay, second line. U and an, right? One, u and n, and read as un. So when we write it according to the rules, so this letter e is omitted. Okay, un. Okay, next one. U and an, one, u and n, one. Okay,